Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to MotorMouth Broadcasting, and welcome back to the 204 Summer League Heat, Summer Heat Late Model Series. Still getting used to all of that. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me in the commentary booth, working the cams as well, is Hamish Monroe. Well, Hamish, I'm not sure what I just called this series, but it's been a fantastic season up to this point. And for the sixth round of this championship, we head off to North Wilkesboro Speedway, a track that has undergone quite a lot of change over the past couple of years in real life. Frankly, I didn't realize how much change this track had gone under until I saw the track that these racers were running here. Completely different than how it is in real life, but it is still that old school kick, even more so considering the slightly outdated scan of what they did back in 2020.
Yeah, well, it's a somewhat updated look for North Wilkesboro, but it's going to be a track that will still offer us some fantastic racing here this evening for the 204 League, of course, here in the Summer Heat Series, although I think you were calling it the Summer League Heat Presents Series. I don't know.
Nick Fleck, learning quando flern.
Of course, I mean, we're going to talk about last week, Ron. Last week's race, unbelievable ending. I think it can be agreed midpoint of the race, massive lull, but as soon as we realised with a few laps to go that fuel game and fuel numbers were a massive portion of the results last week, I mean, it really just reignited us, didn't it? You're finding out that certain drivers are running out of fuel, other drivers have strategized correctly. In fact, strategized perfectly was the admin of the series, Ryan Camber, who went on to win his first race of the season by strategizing, planning around some of those cautions that we got, and it worked out to absolute perfection for him. It was heartbreak for guys like Scotty Oliver, who ran out of fuel on the start-finish line. Could it be a similar scenario tonight with Riley Duncan and Tyler Smith back in the field? I'm unsure. I'm hopeful it's going to be, though, because it is going to reignite this championship, and it will really give us a feeling and a sense, Ron, that anything can happen, and any small mistake could be incredibly costly for these drivers here this evening out at North Wilkesboro. You mentioned that we're out here for round 6 tonight here at North Wilkesboro. We'll mark the halfway point of the championship. As of next week, some of the limitations, or not limitations, some of the regulations will change. We'll head out to Irwindale. No, it's not Irwindale. We'll head out to IRP to go racing. What will change is the dash for cash limitations. It'll go from needing a top 5 finish to needing a top 3 if you hope to cash out and jackpot the dash for cash. We've done it 2 weeks in a row, last week at Richmond and the week before at Nashville Fairgrounds. Could it happen here tonight as well? Could we go 3 from 3? Well, with the dash for cash position to be announced at the end of qualifying, because we don't want to give the drivers, if they're listening, any sort of understanding that, well, if I finish here in qualifying, I'm going to get the dash for cash. No. We're going to keep that a little bit of a secret, just so then we can keep the drivers on their toes tonight, Ron. But I'm excited for tonight. It's going to be a fantastic race, and I think North Wilkesboro going to throw out some great racing as well.
Yeah, I think it certainly will. This is the old school version of this track. So those who aren't familiar with the backstory of how North Wilkesboro got added into iRacing, flash your mind back to 2020. It was Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the crew over at iRacing deciding to preserve North Wilkesboro Speedway. They did it back in the day, in the early days of iRacing. I believe it was 2010 when they decided to go down to Australia and scan the, at the time, still operational track of Orient Park. Before that track got demolished and has now been turned into residential housing. So they decided to do that here with North Wilkesboro under the belief that the track was probably going to get torn down, was in really bad shape at the time. So they got it in iRacing and decided to breathe in some new life into the facility. They cut down some weeds, tried to bring the track into some form of existence. Of course, nowadays it has been fully revived. The NASCAR Cup Series runs the All-Star Race, the NASCAR Truck Series has run here, along with a whole sweep of other late model races throughout the calendar year. Funnily enough, we're heading off to Myrtle Beach in a couple of weeks, a track that has unfortunately gone the way of the dodo bird. We'll be going there in 2 weeks' time, and I believe the same race that was held there at, actually, no, I was going to say the other big late model race they had in Myrtle Beach moved here to North Wilkesboro. That's not the case. Actually moved to a track in Florence, South Carolina, which is right by Darlington, incidentally. And the only reason reason I know that is because back in 2020, 2021, I nearly ended up moving there. And interestingly enough, Florence Motor Speedway, for some reason, has followed me on Twitter for the past like 3, 4 years. I have no idea why. I have never been to that track in person, but no, North Wilkesboro, an absolutely iconic facility in the world of motorsports. And one of those rare feel good stories of a racetrack coming back from the brink of death. And here are these racers going to try and breathe some life into this facility here tonight. A 100 lap long race that lies ahead. A race that is certainly going to be chock full of drama. I feel like this track will be one that can bite these competitors rather quickly, Hamish.
Yeah, I think it will. Some of the difficulties obviously around here is just trying to figure out which lane you want to put yourself into. We saw last week at Richmond, drivers getting caught out and running wide and then obviously making side contact with the wall, and just how that affected the cars last week, how that affected the handling model of these cars as well. Arguably, we had some real semblance of chaos throughout that race at Richmond. Tonight at North Wilkesboro could be a very similar scenario once again. If we have a quick look at the weather this evening, 119 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature, so it's up there in hot track temps. Of course, it's a bright, shiny, sunny day here in North Wilkesboro. That could have a part to play in the grip levels of this track tonight, Ron, and that there could be a major factor in getting us some big incidents later on in the race, especially with worn tyres. Of course, drivers have got 2 sets available to them, 1 tyre change set, so 1 extra set of tyres that they can add on to the car. And well, really what's been the name of the game is you just take right-hand side tyres across 2 stops across the race, and that's normally the regular running order of things for the strategy play, we could say, here in the racing we've seen this season. You mentioned obviously tracks that have gone away like the Dodo Bird, like Myrtle Beach and Oran Park. Of course, Oran Park now a housing estate with every single road in that housing estate named after famous supercar drivers. And there's also now an Oran Park hotel with actual supercars memorabilia from the time period when the track was there. So it's actually a pretty cool place to go and check out in the suburbs of Sydney and New South Wales. Another track that's obviously been scanned by iRacing, Ron, coming in future, that's now gone to the wayside, is of course Pukekohe Raceway out in New Zealand as well. So it's really cool that we get to, at least with iRacing, and we obviously have a say in this. So, a lot of people signed a petition to get iRacing to go and scan the circuit in Pukekohe's case, but it's cool that we can actually hold on to and preserve these race circuits that eventually do get knocked down and built over with houses or with other buildings. So there are other tracks out there which may go by the wayside eventually. If we can preserve them in iRacing, why wouldn't we? Because I think that's the best for everybody.
I can say it's a bit of a shame that some of the other tracks around me went the way of the Dodo Bird long before iRacing was even really a thing. There is one big racetrack around me that is still standing technically. I mean, it is a far cry of what used to be Nazareth Speedway. I remember doing a project in 7th grade talking about Nazareth Speedway up there by Allentown. We have that. We have Trenton Speedway, which used to host IndyCar for many, many moons. I believe it was actually one of the first IndyCar races for AJ Foyt back in his rookie season, all the way back in 1957. And Langhorne Speedway. If anyone's ever seen Langhorne Speedway, imagine a giant circle. Not you hear these people say, "Oh, NASCAR is stupid. All you do is drive in circles." That was basically me back when I was about 9 years old. But no, Langhorne Speedway was an actual circle. You were always turning. It used to be dirt for the longest time. Then they paved it. I believe not per capita. I believe that would be the wrong way to describe it. In terms of years operational versus the amount of people that fell victim to that track, Langhorne is one of the deadliest in the history of auto racing ever. So it shows you the sort of area that I am when it comes to racing in this part of the country. But currently in the midst of qualifying right now, getting to the end of it, looking good for Scotty Oliver, a 118 car, setting a 19.016, my apologies here, for that pole time. It looks like Smith going to join him on the front row. A somewhat small grid that we've got for this race. Dotson starting this race in 3rd. And on the subject of that, Hamish, we were talking a little bit earlier on about the Dash for Cash spot. think I heard P3 potentially being that spot. Is that correct, or were
That
my
is
eyes,
that is
were my
correct.
ears deceiving me?
That is correct, Ron. P3 is the Dash for Cash position this evening. So currently, Rob Donaldson, well, solidified now. Rob Donaldson will be our Dash for Cash driver tonight in the 00 car. Riley Duncan not taking part in qualifying, so obviously want to make his night a little bit harder, a little bit maybe more fun for him. He'll be starting at the back of the field. We'll see if Amir Salah also starts this race as well. They're the 9th car in the server. But as they stand, it will be Scotty Oliver, Tyler Smith on the front row, Rob Donaldson, Lee Hamby on the second, Ryan Camber starting inside of the top 5 alongside Stephen Gary, Marcus De La Garza, last week's Dash for Cash winner in an incredible effort, in a wondrous turn of events, we must say, Ron. He won that on the final lap of the race, Riley Duncan and Amir Salah at the back of the field this evening. 9 cars, North Wilkesboro. Could be deadly. We'll have to wait and see. It disgusts me, Ron, that 7 years ago you were in 7th grade and I finished high school in 2016. Oh, makes me feel old. Makes me feel really old. The 97 is here, Adam. Riley is in the server. I think he may be starting out of pit road, possibly, because he's actually not joined the grid, it seems, Ron. So we'll see what's happening with Riley and if he's racing tonight.
Now, as we see these drivers begin to roll on this formation lap, I want to share a quick little story talking about my own high school graduation. A nice little story involving one of our MotorMouth Broadcasting colleagues, Mr. J.R. Gregory, who I've been doing broadcasts with for many, many moons. His first ever show was actually because I had to call out of one because I had to go for my high school graduation out in Hershey, Pennsylvania. What a wonderful time to graduate. Bearing in mind, I went to a high school that was statewide, so we had to appease the 3 kids that lived in Erie, Pennsylvania. But ready to get this race up and rolling here in the not too far off future, Hamish. Gonna be a rather tough one for these races. You brought up the track conditions a little bit earlier on during this broadcast. As it stands right now, about to get this race up and rolling. You can see a little bit cooler when it comes to the track temps at only 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's still definitely on the warm end. 78 degrees Fahrenheit, which isn't too bad when it comes to the ambient temperature, but the sun glaring down around this track. Relative humidity not too bad at only 45%, so it's not like these racers will be driving through a bowl of soup, and wind rather calm as well. It's just going to be a greasy track with the marbles built up on the outside. These racers have a fine line to run here for the 6th round of the championship, as we are a green flag racing here at North Wilkesboro. The green flag is out. The drivers are on their way, and Scotty Oliver in that 118 car tries to lead him, heading off through turn number 1. We'll look at some more drama going on a little bit farther behind. I think that was Lee Hamby getting very close to the wall on the exit of turn number 2.
Yeah, it appears Riley Duncan has not made the race start here this evening. So no Riley Duncan in the field means that could be an opportunity for Scotty Oliver to actually take the championship lead, possibly heading into the second half of the season here, Ron. So that could be a big detriment to Riley's season. We know that he's missed a race prior to now this season as well. This is only going to hurt him going forward. But for Scotty Oliver, he's in a solid position. Sets the fastest lap of the race last time by. But as they continue to battle away, they're just going to get into their single line of stern now. And we'll see if they're able to get some hot battling happening across the next 97 laps or so. As we begin lap 4 of North Wilkesboro, we settle into our groove. Marcus De La Garza, back of the field, just making up the rear end of this train. We saw them, though, starting to break away last week at Richmond, Ron. We saw a couple of cars start to pull forward, including Lee Hamby, who led the race for a good majority of the proceedings last week. So this top 4 are used to battling together. Gary, Canberra, De La Garza, they're used to battling with each other too, and it appears they're going to get into their nice little tight-knit groups here tonight.
Yeah, we got these racers already forming their own cliques, I believe would be the correct technical term in terms of the small little squabbles that we've got going on all throughout this field. Already 6 laps down of this 100-lap long race. Scotty Oliver still leading over Smith in the number 25 car. Lee Hamby running out the top 3, but still close quarter stuff all throughout this field. Even those front 2 of Scotty Oliver and Tyler Smith haven't been able to break away too far in front of Lee Hamby. About the same gap between Oliver and Smith as it is from Smith to Hamby. Frankly, I think it's slightly larger between the front two than is between 2 and 3. So really got some battling going on at the present moment. These racers looking to settle into some sort of groove. You know, this is a track that can be rather biting, even in the other complete repave that they did of this facility in real life. Whenever you see drivers running around this track, it can snap on you and snap on you quick. It's one of those short tracks. I talked about Nazareth Speedway a little bit earlier on in this broadcast. North Wilkesboro is somewhat similar in the sense that it is a short track that has elevation change. You do have downhill and uphill runs heading down the back straights and the front stretch that can make some of these turns a little bit more challenging than they would be otherwise.
It kind of looks like a, you know, obviously the regular stock standard bean shape you think of, where it's a long sort of turn in a tightening turn and then a switch back into another, then tightening turn and switch back again. This is not necessarily like a regular bean shape circuit. It's more like if you flip the bean on its side and then have the little divot right in the middle, but kind of the opposite way. So it's like you're on like the side of a hill almost, Ron, for the elevation changes of this track. You then mix that in with the, obviously, the camber of the corners being on the banking. It makes a very interesting circuit. I wouldn't mind seeing maybe some NASCAR trucks here, or some Xfinities, or even some ARCA cars running around here as well. And saying that too, maybe even the most difficult of stock cars in iRacing, the NASCAR Legends, the 87 cars, could be quite fun to watch run around here.
And hey, on this scan of iRacing's version of this track, that was the machinery that was running around here. It was those A7 Cup cars that were running on the old asphalt. They only repaved this track a little bit later on in the history of the revival. They ran one full season. I remember there were plans of running it as a dirt track for a very brief period of time, but no, they just paved over it almost immediately. Had the old cracked up asphalt though, which is the same surface that they used to run on back in the 90s and 80s before NASCAR left here back in 1996. But this is an absolute gem of a racetrack, this. And you can also see a little bit of added in drama for these racers to potentially deal with. Look at the inside as we run on board with Steve and Gary. That inside off through turn number 1 and 2, not nearly as pronounced as it is through 3 and 4. We've got ourselves a curb on the inside. There you can see it right there. Now, I would not want to be behind the wheel of one of these race cars in case these drivers accidentally even look at that curb on the inside the wrong way, because I feel like it'll end in one way, that being a rather severe collision with the outside concrete wall.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I think as the tyres break away, Ron, I mean, we mentioned the track temperatures, they did come down slightly for qualifying, as you said, roughly sitting about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. That's roughly in the metric system, roughly, I think, 37 degrees, maybe nearly 40 degrees. So it's definitely on the hotter side. You mentioned that ambient temperature, about 78 degrees Fahrenheit. I believe that's roughly about 24 degrees Celsius or something like that. So the air's not too warm. The track is warm though, and as the tyres start to wear down, they will begin to bleed a little bit. So that will begin to hurt them just at a period. Mike's saying the ticker at the top must be froze. It's not. Unfortunately, we've only got 7 cars on track tonight, so the tower at the top only shows 7 cars. And when it would normally be moving across, it doesn't necessarily, you know, scroll for the for all the 7 cars. So I thought we'd just keep them up there for that period, but we can make it scrolling as well. Lap 20 though of this race. We're going to take this time just to give a quick thanks to the series sponsors by giving them some time to get their advertisements playing as well. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more action from the 204 League presenting the Summer Heat Series very, very soon here from North Wilkesboro. Until then, though, we'll be back very shortly after this quick message from Rideways.
Do you love Orlando's theme parks, but the long lines have you losing the magic? Introducing Rideways, the Apple Watch app designed to help you skip the stress and ride more, with real-time wait times and park info right on your wrist. Whether you're exploring Walt Disney World, adventuring through Universal Orlando, or taking it all in at SeaWorld, Rideways helps you navigate smarter and get the most out of your visit. No more wandering, no more guessing, just more riding. And it's not just wait times. Ride Weights also offers tips on the best times to ride, general park info, and helpful alerts so you never miss out on your favorite attraction. Whether you're planning ahead or making game day decisions in the park, Ride Weights keeps everything you need at a quick glance away. Ride Weights, your wrist-side guide to the best parks in Orlando. Available now on the Apple Watch store.
Not affiliated with or endorsed by any theme park brand.
Welcome back into the 204 League presents the Summer Heat Series here in the late models stocks. Lap 24 of 100 at this stage. Scotty Oliver in dominant fashion, leading the way in the 118 car. His teammate Tyler Smith returning to the series tonight after a trip to hospital last week. Good to see Tyler back in the field tonight, driving around, racing with Lee Hamby just in behind him. Rob Donaldson, our Dash for Cash driver, remains inside of the top 5 at the moment in P4, with Stephen Gary trying to chase him down. So gainers thus far, Hamby's gotten past Donaldson and Gary has gotten past Canberra to get into the top 5. Canberra and De La Garza running around together at the back end of the field as well. Looking forward to the rest of this race here, Ron. We're kind of just settling in now to our groove of, well, when are they going to pit? And the pit stop's going to be a factor here tonight as well. With a lack of cautions thus far, it's looking more and more likely that fuel strategy may be a bit more straightforward tonight. There may be less of a gamble happening for some drivers, but for others as well, they may decide to roll the dice to try and solidify themselves a top 5 finish. That could be from Canberra and De La Garza at the back of the field. Could also be from one of the current top 5 out on track at the moment.
Yeah, so once it comes time for those pit stops, a little bit longer, a little bit farther along in this race, Hamish, I gotta wonder exactly what these racers are going to throw at the wall. I'll see if it can punch. And so clearly the aliens have come here to North Wilkesboro for round number 6 of this season here on MotorMouth Broadcasting. If you're enjoying tonight's action,